Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we will be comparing Minecraft in Windows versus Minecraft in Linux, and we will see if there is a performance difference, and if there is, how much is that performance difference? Now, I think the results might surprise you. Now for our test today, we're going to be using my Pentium J2900 system. Now, why are we using such a slow processor? Well, because if we use a faster processor, we're not going to be able to see the difference as much. One thing that I've noticed in game development and developing programs is that running the game on a much slower system can often help you see how well optimized the code is. And we're going to find out today if Minecraft is better optimized to run on Windows, or if it is better optimized to run on Linux. Now, as you might know, Minecraft is a Microsoft product, but it hasn't always been a Microsoft product. Java Edition runs off of Java, and the Java runtime environment was developed so that you could make programs that run on any operating system. So it's a scripted language that has an interpreter, much like Python or a lot of newer languages. It's not one that's compiled like C. Well, it is compiled, but it's compiled at runtime through the interpreter. Anyway, so what we're probably going to really see in the results is whether or not the Java interpreter is more efficient in Linux or Windows, but there's probably a bit more to the efficiency than that. Anyway, so right now we are in Windows at the loading screen, and here we have an indicator of the power that we're using. So this is a very low power system. The Pentium J2900 only has a TDP of 10 watts, but I'm not using the integrated video for this processor because it's really bad. It's not even good enough to run Minecraft. I paired this with a GT610 that I bought at a thrift store for $1 in 2017, which is not a great GPU either, so we're not going to see stellar performance, but we are going to see enough performance to actually play the game. And I am using Optifine here, and I will make sure that the Optifine settings are exactly the same in Windows and in Linux, so that won't be a factor either. And Optifine just gives you a lot more performance on the system, makes it so things load smoother. There are other ways of doing that. I'm pretty new to modding Minecraft, so I'm not familiar with sodium mods enough to try them out yet. Anyway, so we're just using Optifine and the latest version of Minecraft, version 1.18.2. That is the latest version as of me filming this. And I'm going to make sure we have the exact same world in both scenarios, because the world that you're in actually affects the frame rate, depending on the entities and things that are in that world. So I've copied over the world from Windows into Linux. So right now we're in Windows, and just to prove that, we're going to exit out really quick. So there, you can see this is my Windows desktop. And at idle in Windows, this uses about 30 watts, 29 to 30 watts, but we're not idling right now. So you can see it uses quite a bit of power just to power the loading screen on Minecraft. It's mostly the GPU using up the power. This GPU has a TDP of 29 watts, and the total system power right now, under this load, if you could call it that, is 42 watts. So the GPU is using most of that power, and then the motherboard and the power supply are using that other 10 watts there. So it's the motherboard, the power supply, a powered hub, 2 hard drives, and a USB sound card, and a few other devices in there. Oh, and the Wi-Fi card. So all that together is using 41 watts currently. So it's pretty low power. This is less power than a Mac M1 notebook uses. So, okay, let's get into it. Enough of my rambling. Let's go ahead and load this. I'm going to load this weld here. So I want you to see the loading times as well, so you can see the difference in loading times if there is one. And the loading times are pretty slow, but not nearly as slow as it is to try to create a weld on this computer. I mean, I've seen worse. I've seen a first-gen i5 perform a lot worse than this, so it's not that bad. Considering it's only a 10-watt CPU that currently, when I'm not using the iGPU, it only uses 2 watts. So we have 2 watts of processing power doing this work here. And that's kind of impressive. But again, I am perfectly aware that... Oh, it's not viewing the frame rate. Give me a second, I will fix that. Alright, I just wanted to give you a quick view of the Optifine settings that we are using here. So pretty low. I've pretty much turned everything down without making it look absolutely terrible. Alright, back to the game. So now we have the FPS on and we are at 46 FPS. Now, initially it was very laggy when loading. And now, so in this room here, as I move around, I mean it goes into 40s, but it is around 35 FPS-ish. Even worse, 33 when I'm not even doing anything. Yeah, so the FPS isn't great. It's pretty terrible. But, I mean, it's playable. Alright, let's go ahead and go down here. See if the FPS improves when I go to an area that doesn't really have much. Okay, we're seeing an improvement in the FPS. We're into the 40s now. 50-something. And right now, we are using 47 watts of power. Okay, so when we're in an area that has nothing, we get FPS that is between 40 and 50. Now let's go ahead and go outside and see what kind of frame rate we get outside. Oh, it's dropping down into the 20s on the stairs. So we're definitely getting some low frame drops there. Outside, we're down to 23 FPS. And the power usage is stable at around 48, 49 watts. Yeah, so not a great experience outside. I mean, we dropped way below 30. It is definitely, it's not really going above 26 FPS here. Okay, now it's going to, oh, yep. Pretty much stuck below 30 FPS outside. Alright, I think that's enough for us to get an idea of how well it runs in Windows. Now let's go ahead and do the exact same thing in Linux and see what the difference is, if there is one. Alright, here we are in Linux. Let's go ahead and make sure the graphics settings are set the same. Okay, I've gone ahead and made sure that all the graphics settings are the same in Linux. And just to show that this is Linux, let's go ahead and... Okay, there you can see this is the Ubuntu desktop, so this is running on Ubuntu 22.04, so the latest LTS version of Ubuntu. Okay, let's go to single player, and then we will run the exact same world we ran in Windows. So we'll see how long it takes to load. I think the loading time is fairly similar. And right now we are at only 36 watts of power, so it's actually using less power while loading, just a little bit less. Alright, here we are in the beginning, and we're getting those frame drops initially like we saw before. Well, I didn't actually have the frame counter running. So initially while it's loading, we get really crappy frame rates. But after the first few seconds of the game, then those frame rates will improve. So let's give it about the same amount of time we gave it before in Windows. And now we can see the frame rate has settled down to pretty much exactly what it was in Windows. So this is running at 1080p, just like it was in Windows. Okay, so no difference there, really. We're getting frame rates in the 30s. Oh, now they're going up. No, not really. So frame rates in the 30s. Okay, now they're going to the 40s. No, back down. So not great here. Let's go out here and see what frame rates we get down here. And now down here, we're getting frame rates in the 50s. Okay, is it going to drop into the 40s like it did in Windows? Oh, yep. In fact, it's dropping even more. That was about the same as what it was in Windows. Now as we go up the stairs, the frame rates are dropping into the 20s, just like they were in Windows. And the power consumption is at 48, 49, so pretty much the exact same as what it was in Windows as well. Now we are outside. We're getting frame rates into the 20s. So, I really thought that Minecraft ran better in Linux than it does in Windows, because I had two options that I accidentally set differently in Linux, and apparently those two options made a huge difference in the frame rate. Actually, there were like 3 different options. So here we're seeing pretty crappy frame rates, just like we got in Windows. So there's absolutely no difference in performance between Minecraft in Windows and Minecraft in Linux, which surprises me. Now, can we get this to perform a lot better than this? Yes, we can. So the options I had selected before, I'm not sure which of these options were changing things, but I actually had smooth lighting on to minimum, and then I had all this was the same. I think, whoops. Except dynamic updates was on. And smooth FPS was off. Oh, I keep exiting out. And, okay. So, smooth FPS is off. I had the shaders off. I don't know if that even makes any difference with this GPU. It doesn't really seem to. But I just want to set everything the way it was and show you that I was getting much better FPS. And then under details, I had the entity distance set to 50%. And I think those are the only things I changed. And I was getting way better FPS. So now you can see we're already in the 40s, so 44 FPS, 42 FPS, 39, so much better than the 20-something FPS we were getting before. So just a few little changes in the settings can have a dramatic effect and can make you think, oh, this is running better in this operating system than the other, which is why it was super important for me to go through and double check everything to make sure the settings were identical. It's still not great, don't get me wrong, still not great, but 40-something FPS, 39 to 45 FPS is way better than the 23 to 26 FPS we were getting. Now let's go underground, and you can see now we're getting, on these stairs where we were getting 20-something FPS before, we're getting almost 60 FPS, so this is a way more playable experience. So sometimes when you're playing games, you just need to tweak a few settings here and there, and those settings can make all the difference. So if your game is slow, you might not need new hardware, you might just need to adjust a few settings, and it doesn't change anything really about the playing experience as far as the visual quality other than making it a lot smoother. So see how we're getting pretty much 60 FPS, 59 FPS here in this area, where before I was getting 30 FPS. Now let's go back here. So now we're getting almost 60 FPS right here. So that's a huge difference just in the settings. But the operating system apparently makes absolutely no difference, which really makes sense because they both run on Java, and yeah, I thought there was a slight difference because I had those few settings changed, but there really isn't. No difference whatsoever between Java Edition on Windows and Linux. So anyone that thinks that Minecraft runs better on Windows is obviously wrong, because it runs identically on Linux. Though I do have to say that it does seem smoother overall in Linux when I'm playing. Like the load times don't seem as slow. So I think Linux might load a little bit faster, but overall the frame rates are exactly the same. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. If you liked this video, then go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and have a wonderful day. Oh, as far as power consumption goes, they were pretty much the same too. Right now we're consuming 50 watts, so slightly more power, but the difference is in, measuring error really between 49, 48, 50 watts. So the power consumption is about the same too. Maybe slightly higher in Linux from what I've seen, but the performance also seems slightly better in Linux as far as smoothness, not really as far as frame rates go. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. Have a great day.